Hello, hello everyone. Today I will be speaking about learning product organizations that experiment frequently. And what does it mean? I will explain, of course, during my talk. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to organizers for having me here and inviting me. So, let's start maybe shortly about me. So, who I am? I'm Magdalena Filrit. I'm Agile Transformation Consultant. I cooperate with plenty of companies, smaller, bigger, corporate environments, startups, and medium size. I speak as today, for example, a mentor, train people. I'm accredited professional Scrum Trainer, so not only consulting, but also training and courses, accredited courses also are my profession. Not to speak so much about me, what are learning objectives in general for this speech? The first of all, I wanted to share what does value mean and value-oriented organization. And the second objective is about experiments that you can run in your organization, that they will be low-cost experiments and why it's worth to experiment at all. And the third objective actually is about, in general, learning organization, that is empirical and agile organization. So let's start. That's the thing that actually struck me so much when I first saw this research from 2015. It was about 64% of features were never or rarely used. So much. They were never or rarely used. And this is not the only one research. There are actually four of them. Four of them, and they are saying all about around 43, 64, and so on features that were never or included rarely used. Curious what is in the 2020? Guess. Just guess. What is the number? They repeat it, and actually this research is repeated each year. And 2020? 80% of features were never or rarely used. What does it mean? It means that we produce something that is not wanted, because when it comes to this research, it means that those 80% of features, not only they are not used, but they don't bring any value to the organization. So that's what is worrying and very interesting at the same time, right? So we produce things that are not or rarely used. So the number increased, right? From 64% to 80%, which is actually like shocking for me. So numbers are growing, and it means that we produce more and more unwanted stuff. So what to do to overcome it? That would be the next part of this, of course, talk. And what is the reason? This is what will be coming next. What is the reason? Right? So here is like the differentiation between all those statuses, like, for example, features that are used on a regular basis or often, quite often. So the total number, 57% of never used and plus rarely used, means, and used sometimes, means that 80% are never used or rarely used, right? Only 20% of features are used frequently, on a regular basis, and quite often, right? So think about it. Think if you measure it in your product. Think about it. It's so important to invest your money or your company money to something that will be really used and will be really useful. Actually, this one research comes from Standish group study, and that was 2,000 projects at 1,000 companies. So that wasn't the research that was done on 2 or 3 organizations, not 1,000 organizations, right? So think about it, think about if you measure it, if yes, what are numbers? So potential reasons that they can be. This is focus on outputs, no focus on value. That's the main reason. So we focus on delivery. In other words, we produce too many unnecessary, unimportant, irrelevant features. That's what it is. That's what it is. We produce too many unnecessary, unimportant features because we are focused on features, not on value. What you can do about it, you can focus on outcomes. You can focus on value. Another reason can be poor user experience. So your features maybe are relevant, maybe are valuable, but people cannot find it. Just simply like that, because they are hidden in your system, in your product, they are hidden. Not easy to find. When it comes to the third reason, this is one of the main reasons of learning organizations. It is no validation of our assumptions. So we assume that we just have the brilliant idea. And we think that, okay, this is the great idea and this idea will serve our customers. How do we know it? How do you know it? Once you woke up with some brilliant idea, how do you know it? That it will be brilliant and that would be valuable and would be used. Of course, there is an answer for it. Of course, there is. So, the thing is, what is value? What is value? This is the first thing we should focus on. We should know the definition of it. And the first answer will be that outcomes. So there are 3 types of value. First is outcome. Outcomes for customers and users. Outcomes, they are measurable changes in customer behavior. Measurable changes in customer behavior. Do you measure it? Think about it. If you measure it, if yes, that's brilliant, that's perfectly fine. So you can see if those features you produce, they are valuable or actually not valuable for your customers and users. And the second type of value is a benefit for the organization. Mostly, of course, money, return on investment, or cost avoidance, or can be cost saving, for example. So benefit for the organization and the company impact. And the third type is a social benefit. For example, when you have the charity organization, for them, social benefit would be the most important. Of course, for companies, very often nowadays as well. So social benefit. So for example, taking care of environment, that would be social benefit. Or taking care of some charities as well. As a commercial organization, we can also take care of them. So this is what the value is. And perfectly for organizations when they can balance it. So not only being focused on benefits for the organization, but also being focused on outcomes for customers and users. If social benefit is the case, that's fine, that's right, okay, let's measure it as well. But we need to balance at least 2 first types of value. Okay? Because there is also research. There are plenty actually of them. But one of them was like from Harvard Business Review, when there is some comparison, when the more outcomes you are going to deliver to your customers and users, the more benefits for your organization they will be obtained. That's maybe obvious, but apparently not. Those numbers, like this 80% of features that are not or rarely used, that something means that we are not taking care of outcomes for our users and customers. That's something can be one of the main reason that was from the previous slide, right? Focus on outputs and no focus on value. Okay. So now we know what is value. Yeah. And what would be the potential remedy? So we know reasons right now. We know what is value, and right now, let's see what we can do with those numbers. So first of all, we need to measure it, right? And once you know it, think about it if potential remedy is also included here, like outcomes, value delivery. So focus on outcomes, measurable changes in customer behavior. That would be my first tip here. The second tip would be validate your assumptions. What we mean here, experiment often and frequently. Please run experiments. Small, low-cost experiments. That is something that we should strive for. Measure and learn and repeat. So apply it regularly. I mean that we should validate our hypotheses on a daily, on weekly, or maybe monthly basis. Depends, of course, on the nature of your business. If your business is fast changing, I would suggest doing it more frequently. Those validations, measurements, and taking care of your experimentation. But when your business is more stable, maybe you don't need so much frequency and regularity here. Maybe once per month. Maybe depends on your business. So you need to validate it, and you need to think about how frequently I should validate my assumptions, or my company assumptions, my stakeholders' assumptions, of course. So when I'm saying you, I'm thinking about all the environment you may have in your company. So that would be the potential remedy. So the question is, well, let's imagine you have a brilliant idea. And how do you know that you are right? How do you know it without any validation? How do you know it? Probably the answer is no, or I don't know, or maybe you actually know it. If it's true, that's perfectly fine. But think about how do you know it? How do we know it that you are right when it comes to your brilliant idea? And if the first question was your answer was yes, how do I know? I'm pretty sure. So the next question might be also useful, might be at some point helpful for you. And the question is, would you invest money without verification? Would you do it? Would you invest it? Think about it. Would you invest money, or your money, or your organization without verification? Why I'm asking this? Because this question actually may prevent your organization from putting money, investing money into those features, but might be rarely or never used in the future. Think about it. If you would invest money without verification, this is what happens in the majority of organizations I cooperate with. The majority of them, they invest money without any verification. And one of the reasons is, because another company has this certain feature. So our competitor has it. We must have it. Absolutely. We have to do it. For me, that's not any reasoning what we should invest money. We need to verify if our competitors, if they actually benefit from investing in this particular feature you wanted also to invest. So please think about it. Another thing is that must be the great feature and must be the great functionality for our companies, for our company, for our product. But why? Without verification? It is just because it's great for us? We don't know. We simply just don't know. And if we don't know, the answer would be experiment. Experiment as much as you can. Don't invest so much on experimentation, but please do it. Do it to make sure that you are on the right direction. Also, if you have goals might be changed after experimentation. So let's imagine the situation. You have this brilliant idea, let's assume, and then you try to invest in the experimentation. And one of the simplest experimentation is just talking to your customers. So like interviews, observations, they are so easy. Maybe not so easy because you need to recruit the group, of course, and you need to invest a little bit of time to just observing them or talking to them. And think about it, because this is some investment, it's not so high, it's not so huge. What you can do, you can just observe your customers and start talking to them. And once you start talking to the customers and you have the goal of delivering a certain feature, then you can validate after those conversations actually if this goal is still relevant and still valid, if you need to do it, this feature, or maybe we just need to pivot. So be careful, because surveys are not enough. From my experience, I found surveys that they are declarative. It means that something customers, users, they can declare to you, but it may happen that it's not like 100% of their needs, real needs. So that's why you need to repeat the survey by talking, so by interviews with customers and observations. How do they use the product? For example, prototypes. So think about it as well. And when it comes to low cost and being fast, so conversations and interviews are one of the cheapest experimentation you can do, just by asking customers. Yes. Another thing that we can do is experimentation as the way of validation. So other techniques. First of all, we mentioned in the previous slide, we mentioned about observations and talking to customers. And the third type of experimentation can be the paper prototype, actually. Paper prototypes or digital prototypes. Right now we moved to rather digital prototyping, but really low fidelity. Nothing like, no graphic design is included there. Only we want to check the functionality and the way of usability and the way of working for our customers. So what we can do, in addition to talking to customers and observing them, we can add actually the digital prototype or paper prototype if you wish. That's actually can be very similar. And try to use them while talking to customers and ask them very open questions. Like, for example, the question can be, you want to pay your debt, for example, credit card debt, and what would you do? And they will be clicking or seeing or saying, oh, I would click here or I would click here. So when it comes to, for example, mobile banking application, right? So pay your credit card debt, something like that. So they need to show what they will do. No suggestions when it comes to questions. No suggestions in questions to when you will be interviewing your customers. Another type of experimentation that can be fast, you can do it within your sprint, can be also Wizard of Oz. That's one of the examples. Wizard of Oz, that was the technique that was used by Alexa, Amazon, and they just bought the cheapest ever microphone and speakers, and they just validated if there is any use of Alexa, right? So that's something also that you can apply to your business and way of validation of your product. So once we have those ideas how to validate value, yeah, outcomes, yeah, we need to validate if there are any outcomes will be delivered. So we can say that our product, at least product, maybe the entire organization not, still not, but at least our product is the learning product, so because we learn based on experiments. And if we have the organization that is working like this, working in this environment, so we tend to say that, okay, we are the organization, that we are learning organization, right? And you are just allowed to run experiments, and not only allowed, but you are encouraged to run those experiments. That's perfect organization, and this is what we should strive for and show them. Okay, we need to validate, we need to run, for example, the paper prototyping, we need to do this, we need to do that, only because we need to validate if there is any value behind it, or actually not. If not, you saved your money. Sometimes people say, okay, but what will happen if you run, let's imagine one of those experiments, right? And you are running digital prototypes, so you need to invest a few hours, right? And with recruitment of group, and so few hours more with interviews with this prototype. This is still some hours, maybe one, maybe 2 days. But if you want to invest like months on delivery a certain application or features, the cost would be incomparable, right? 2 days, let's imagine 2 days, sometimes it's less, but let's imagine the 2 days investing in experiment and 5 months in delivery without those 2 days, without checking, without any verification. So sometimes people say, okay, if this a 2-day experiment, then the result will be negative. So we lost our 2 days. No, you haven't lost your 2 days of working. You actually gain 5 months on not working on something that will be not or never used or rarely used, and so on. So this is actually for me saving money instead of investing so much. And what is the characteristic of learning organization? Actually, this is the product-oriented organization, not project-oriented. Because product, we can actually develop the product, maintain the product, add something, remove something, and measure outcomes, measure return on investment, and many other, of course, metrics. So this is something we develop. Projects are rather like with start, with end, and the measure is budget, scope, and time. Here, in product-oriented organization, we rather tend to say that this is value-oriented, customer-oriented. Products are customer-oriented. And employee-oriented organization as well. A learning organization is employee-oriented. So there are many, of course, reasons why I put it here. One of the reasons is actually that when we listen to employees and their brilliant ideas, that's fine, that's perfect. We can actually benefit more by listening to our employees. And the second reason I put it here is because the more engaged employees are, they are more effective, just more effective, more creative, and more engaged. So that's why learning organization also not only is focused on customers, but also on employees. And the learning organization, this is the organization that experiment often, right? Experiments often. And agile leadership is also instead of traditional management in this organization. So for example, agile leadership means that we need to delegate some things to employees, give them goals, or together, even better, together create goals, and then you can have more results and more creativity. Especially in IT environment, we need creativity, we need people's engagement. That's not the factory. We need to think, but this is completely different experience for employees being creative or then being put into the factory on the assembly line. That's not an assembly line. That's actually not the feature factory. No, it's not. This is the creativity we want to have. So agile leadership, one of those things, this is the delegation is one of the key points for agile leadership, instead of command control, instead of micromanagement. So this is what agile leadership can do for learning organizations. Support it, right? Can support it. And empirical agile mindset. This is something that we need to have cadences. So for example, sprints, or for value and experimentation, we may also have some cadences. If you work with Scrum, or you work with, for example, Kanban, or some different agile approach, there will be always some sort of cadences that can support empirical delivery. Yeah? And agile mindset as well. Agile mindset that we need to validate risk all the time, that we need to think about if we are still first or second or third in the market, and what we can do to gain it, and what we can do to not to miss actually some opportunities from the market as well, right? And learnings from validation and experimentation, that also should be done on cadences, and we should learn, we should measure frequently, validate ideas, and that's what would be learning organization. So we learn from experiments, we will learn from the past delivery, This is what we do. So that was actually the finish of our topic, and I wanted just to see if you have any questions. They actually came up during my talk, and you need to dig it up more maybe. So you can send questions or to organizers or directly to me. That's my email address. I know that the talk is really short, and I'm aware also that I didn't cover everything what I might cover, but things that I wanted you really to just think after my talk is: do you measure your customers and your usage of your products? Do you have some ideas but they are not validated? So try to experiment, try to use really low-cost experiments, as I mentioned before, and try to think about how I can improve my actually organization that can be more value-oriented, that can be more customer-oriented, experimentation-oriented, and learn from experimentation. And my organization, you can say, supports experimentation. That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful, and I wish you this state in your company. I hope you are close to it. So thank you so much. Again, thank you organizers, thank you my dear participants, and I keep my all fingers crossed for you and for your products. Experiment.